Since its founding in 1973, People's Action for Clean Energy, or PACE, has been a tireless and effective advocate for safe, clean energy in Connecticut. Members of PACE can be found conducting tours of energy-efficient homes, advocating at legislative hearings, monitoring radiation levels across the state, and in general, educating the public about the benefits of clean energy and the dangers of nuclear and fossil fuel energy. For nearly all of its existence, PACE was led by a passionate, intelligent, and determined woman named Judi Friedman. Over the years, Judi and her devoted husband Lou gathered and inspired a powerful team of clean energy activists and educators. Their impact is far-reaching and lasting. Over these years, no one has embodied the vision and mission of PACE more than Judi, and no one could articulate this vision better than she.
Well, we are an organization devoted to clean energy, as you know, Noreen. I mean, squeaky clean. Squeaky. And that means solar energy, solar thermal, solar electricity, passive solar. We're also interested in wind energy and small hydro. Of course, the win-win of all time is LED lighting, energy efficient appliances and technology, so that's what we're all about. We are very, very, very concerned about nuclear power. And our state, this area, this listener area, could be impacted by an accident either at Millstone, Indian Point, or Vermont Yankee. And those are aging plants, so that is another concern of ours.
Well, PACE got started way back after 1973, when Northeast Utilities announced that it was going to site a new nuclear power plant. And Middletown, Connecticut, was one of the options. We ultimately were picked as the backup to Montague, Massachusetts. But as it turned out, a number of people formed out of both Wesleyan University and what was then Xerox Educational Publications, this group called PACE. And it was just a small little group of about a half dozen or a dozen people, with a guy named Gerhard Betting, who became the chair of it. He left after about a year, turned this thing over to a young Wesleyan instructor, John McDougall, who began to have meetings in his living room. And a number of people from around the state began to come to those meetings, and Judi was one of them. She didn't have a nuclear power plant that was going to be built in her backyard, like I was afraid I had a nuclear power plant that was going to be built in my backyard in Middletown. But nevertheless, she brought a vitality and energy to that living room and to the group of people and said, look, I'm going to form my own chapter of this organization out in the Farmington Valley, and that's what she did.
First and foremost, I think of Mom as having been an environmentalist and an anti-nuclear activist. And one of my strongest earlier memories, not from when I was a child, but from when I was 14, Dana was 12, and Seth was 9. We went to, it was a family outing, but it was to the Seabrook nuclear power plant. And my father had somehow finagled a press pass. He was not a member of the media, which allowed all of us to get into the corral where the media was. And it was a scene. And it was that left a really indelible mark on my memory. I don't know about your memories. And it really, for me, was the pivot point for Mom moving from thinking and being active on environmental issues to really making a deep and lifelong commitment to fighting nuclear power, which then translated later in our parents' life to trying to stop the proliferation of nuclear weapons as well.
On that note, too, one of my greatest lessons from Mom and PACE, and her mission was that an early lesson that she taught me, and actually came from Joel Gordis, was that she was anti-nuclear, and quickly and had a lot of strong feelings, as Kim said, as an anti-nuclear activist. But Joel brought up early on that it was really, really important to find, what's the answer? What's something positive we can come with? We can't just say this is bad without saying what's good, and that's really what drove PACE and towards solar. And Joel was just, I remember Joel was someone from a technical point of view that my mom really hung on to, and Joel was a huge help to her and really taught her the technical aspect of solar. But that's really what drove PACE, I think, towards solar tours and to everything she did there. Instead of just screaming about nukes are bad, she yelled on the rooftops that solar was great.
You do have to be for something. You can't be just against things, and I think that's a big mistake of a lot of the environmental groups that I saw along the way. And I think most of them have a positive message today if we've made a change. But PACE has certainly amplified that right from the beginning when that took place. And again, going on house tours, what could be more positive than showing people something actually works and not just reading about it in some distant place in a magazine? Being able to go through the house, to talk with the owners, to see it and see that it doesn't have to be a monstrosity either, is probably the biggest advertising that you can do for clean energy.
PACE held its first house tour back in March of 1977, and since then has held 50 tours.
Hundreds of people began to look at these things, and later on thousands of people began to go on these tours, and it turned into hundreds and thousands of people actually building energy efficient homes, putting active solar, passive solar systems into their homes, and really exploring all kinds of options to nuclear energy.
We met Judi roughly in 2004, give or take, at a PACE tour at her and Lou's home in Canton. They had recently installed a ground-mounted solar PV system, and we learned earlier on that we both were interested in solar PV as children. We're talking in the 1960s or 70s. And we went on this PACE tour, and we were just fascinated with what they had installed.
And that's how we decided to install our solar panels.
Judi brought just a real human element to this, and I think that kind of human advocacy, that grassroots advocacy, was very powerful in promoting renewable energy throughout the state, particularly through the solar house tours. I think, we did our house back in 1992. That was one of the first ones, or at the early stages of this. So it was really, and just to see the improvements from tour to tour to tour in terms of the advancement of technology, the early adopters, and then a real more broad consumption and devotion and commitment from people across the state. And again, I just think PACE as an organization was very inspiring in that kind of way.
Part of John's and my mission in this endeavor was to relay the message that you can do this.
Yeah, we were trying to make a statement about doing something differently, and that's what this house was about from the moment we began to even think about it. And so when Judi and Lou came along, it was of the kindred spirit kind of sense that they understood what we were trying to do. Not so much just for us in this lifetime, but hopefully for a long time, this house will be here as an example of what you can do without, draining resources around you.
The impact of these tours goes well beyond the number of people who actually attended one. For some, the impact was life-changing.
Yeah, it started out as a joke. We're looking up at our solar panels, say, hey, if we really like this, we should go into business and do this. And then we decided to actually go ahead and do it because we loved our solar panels. And Judi was a big encourager. She was right behind us the whole way.
When Judi would recommend that people go visit a passive energy house, people could suddenly see that there were things within their reach that they could begin to do. Maybe not an entire passive energy house, but they should get an energy audit. They should think about insulation and windows and things of that sort. All part of the puzzle, all part of our ability to sort of change the equation when it comes to being responsible with the use of energy and the not using energy.
We knew that they would bring the right kind of people in. And actually, that was something she said, is like, these aren't people who are just curious. They're people who kind of want to do things along the lines of what you're doing. So it was a way of speaking to people who would understand what we were talking about and weren't just wondering what this is like. They were also people who had plans to do this type of thing.
Judi Friedman led PACE for 43 years. Such a sustained commitment speaks to a passion at a deeper level. For Judi, her excitement about clean energy and her aversion to nuclear energy were inextricably linked to her love for her children, for their children, and for nature. For Judi, everything was connected, and fundamentally, clean energy was a moral issue.
The thing that's so amazing, I mean, this is a remarkable couple that maintained being activists and involved and trying to make change for nearly 5 decades. There's not too many people that can say that. Certainly, being a public official, I obviously am very much aware of citizens who come and go on issues. You're involved for a while and you're passionate about it, but your interest wanes and you move on to other issues and you do other things in your life. But with Judi and Lou, that was never the case. These were two people who stayed committed to what they believed in, supported the people who were supporting their cause.
In the course of this, then we learned that there were a lot of other things that we loved in common. Animals, for one. And Judi was very involved with the Humane Society of the United States, who had sponsored an album I had done about sea mammals in 1980. And so there was a whole other common ground to explore. And solar energy came in much later. I didn't really know much about PACE at that time. And they were not as passionate as they were as true warriors for what they cared about. They weren't evangelizers in a way that they tried to kind of persuade you to get involved in what they were interested in. It all just emerged in the process of our friendship.
Two things that I hold very dearly are when people come here trying to increase their observations and their awareness about the world that surrounds them. And Judi was always trying to increase her awareness. The second is the importance of the interrelationships that exist here in the natural world, and how things that happen on one side affect things that happen on the other.
Her belief about nature and saving the earth for all of the creatures that we share it with, and all of the beautiful variety of life was just so important to her. And the renewable energy focus and anti-nuclear, which of course is so threatening to the world, was a belief that we really shared together.
And it was a moral issue for her. This was not a scientific issue or a technical issue.
Right. No.
It was a moral and ethical issue for her. Both the moving away from our dependence on nuclear power and moving towards renewables.
Mm-hmm. There was the usual skeptic on site who said, "So, what's the payback for this stuff?" And there was Judi saying, "The payback for me is I know that I'm leaving the world a better place for my children and my grandchildren," and I said, "I want to be like her."
She let go of PACE, and it really was a letting go for her. Completely at peace with the fact that PACE was going to probably go in a different direction. And she was so grateful that people they expressed sadness that she was stepping down. They also made it really clear to her that they were in it for the long haul. And I think that she passed feeling very peaceful about that.
When the moment came when she realized she needed to step down, that was one of the hardest moments for her, because it was something, pace was something that she was so attached to. And it was, in a way, a fourth child. You know, it was something that she believed in so much and cared for so intimately for so long. To feel like she was leaving that organization either completely or in uncertainty was disconcerting for her.
The whole organization for whoever comes in the future, you know, PACE it was a group thing for her, like Kim spoke to, and there was this time that Kim and Dana are mentioning that she thought it was going to go away without her, and the whole kind of group saying, no, we're going to run with this thing. I think that was it. I know it totally changed where she was at mentally and brought her endless happiness.
So Judi, I'm pretty sure messed up the serenity prayer a little bit. The real one goes, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Judi misread it, and I believe this is about what she had. God, grant me the courage to change the things I can, the power to gather people to move mountains, and the wisdom to know that anything is possible. Yay, Judi.
We owe it to Judi and all the good work she's done to keep the cause moving forward, and that others must pick up the mantle and really continue to keep the focus on something that we don't have any other choice other than to be successful at, which is renewable clean energy.
And I mean squeaky clean energy.